All right, now Seattle is going to be the topic of this particular video, and people are saying, don't forget about Seattle because I talk about Tacoma a lot, and I won't forget about Seattle, obviously. But this one talks about their traffic. Okay, and it's not your typical, oh, it's always a lot of traffic there. This is really going to be a big deal. Seattle went through a process of replacing what's called the viaduct. Now, prior to really knowing a lot about Seattle, and I moved here, I didn't know about the viaduct that much. People were saying, oh, the viaduct, this and that. No, it's sinking and all this stuff. I didn't know really what it was, even though I had driven on it, right? I didn't know that's exactly what it was. But back in the day, a lot of cities had these major thoroughfares that ran through their cities, and they were these double-decker type setups. And that was kind of, I guess, a signature stamp of saying, look, we are a big progressive city, right? But then that kind of fell out of fashion, and a lot of cities are doing away with them. And Seattle is no different from there's no exception to the rule. Now, the viaduct's being closed for a lot of different reasons. One, it is severely old. It costs a lot to repair it. It's going to cost a lot to replace it. It's really not needed. And when we've had earthquakes, it has done more damage to the viaduct. And it's also sinking. So there's so many different reasons as to why it's not a good fit. Some call it an eyesore. It distracts from views of the water and all that stuff. I don't know. It's kind of how you feel about it, right? There was an effort to try to save some of the viaduct. They wanted to create like a living bridge type thing, which you've seen in different cities and in New York and things like that. That didn't happen. It would cost too much money, and it was just not really approved. The city said no. So it's about a little over 2 miles long, and they say it carries about 90,000 people a day, cars a day. Now, I've had someone just yesterday ask me about traffic to Seattle. Does it really take this long to get there? And I said, yeah, you can expect that. To get to Seattle, it depends on the time of day when you're talking about gridlock. Because there's times that I can get there and it's like 45 minutes. And then there's other times it takes well over an hour to get there. For some people, it takes longer than that. It really depends. If everything is flowing just decently, you can get there from here, from my house, you can get there in like an hour, 30 minutes or so. And that's during peak times and all of that stuff. And that's going from here to downtown. Now, it depends on where in Seattle you're going, because different areas, obviously, it's going to take longer. If you have to go over to Bellevue, it's going to take even more time because it's gridlock over there too. So by the time you get up to Seattle and then try to get over to Bellevue, and that's a long wait. It's a long day. So it depends. It's kind of relative. Where are you in Tacoma when you're leaving? Where are you going to in Seattle when you're getting there? It's going to vary. But one of the big issues is the viaduct, because it carries so many people, and shutting that down, which is what they're going to do in a couple of days, is going to be a traffic nightmare that radiates out, because there's a lot of people that use that system every single day. And it's even if you don't use the viaduct, even if you're not one of those 90,000 vehicles, the fact that those vehicles are being displaced is going to radiate out everywhere because they have to take other alternatives. Right now, the actual highway that they're putting in, which is a tunnel. Now, that was also another big issue too, because it took billions of dollars to build this tunnel. Seattle is now loving the tunnel system. It's really embracing tunnels quite a bit, because for the longest time, the city wouldn't build the subway system. And I've talked about that. That actually went to Atlanta to build their subway system when we were given the money long time ago to build our subway system. People said no. Now we can't get enough of subway or enough of tunnels. And so we're building tunnels everywhere. And I get it. We are pretty much confined. And so we have to do that. We have to go underground. But they're building basically a double-decker underground. So it's basically a tunnel where you will have cars on 2 levels. And I get it. It makes sense. But it costs a tremendous amount of money, and it took longer than usual to get it done. there was a lot of these big tunnel equipment things that broke down along the way. These big borer machines that dig through there, they broke down at different points. So it took forever, right? When you look at Seattle and the amount of people that have been added just in just a short amount of time, it adds to the constraints of what the city is able to do, right? So I understand why they're doing a lot of the things that they're doing. I understand why they're adding all these different tunnels for the light rail system and for something like this. But I think it costs, what was it? So they're talking about the viaduct. It was built in 1953. It was weakened by the earthquake that happened in 2001. And it says basically the city battled for years on how to best replace it. And with the tunnel plan now estimated at $3.3 billion, the tunnel cost $3.3 billion to do. So it's kind of like Seattle's own Big Dig. You know, the Big Dig that was up in Boston? It's kind of like that was our version of it. But it cost $3.3 billion for a tunnel. Now, because it's going to be, they're not opening it up simultaneously, right? So it's not like the tunnel's going to open and then while the viaduct shut down. That's not how it works. You're basically going to have the viaduct shut down because they're going to have to destroy it, knock it down piece by piece. And the tunnel is still not going to be open just yet. So all of those cars and trucks and everything else are going to be out on city streets. And so it's going to make an already crowded city streets that are there even more crowded. It's going to make I-5, which is already pretty crowded, even more crowded. And so now the city is telling people these are plans that you can do, and they're trying to find ways to help people. But it's going to be a pretty big mess. Now, let's see in here where it talks about, and it may not talk about when the deal is done. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't really say within this article as to like when the actual system will be open as far as the tunnel. But it's going to take some time, right? The finishing touches to the actual tunnel system take some time. Let's see, viaduct tunnel. Let's see what it says. And keep in mind that tunnel is going to be a toll. You're going to have to pay a toll to go through the State Route 99 tunnel. Now, they're saying the tunnel is scheduled to open to drivers in early 2019. That doesn't tell you exactly when it's going to be open. Basically, we're talking a 3-week period. They're hoping it's a 3-week period of when the viaduct is shut down versus when the tunnel is open. So 3 weeks. There's going to be a 3-week, almost a month period if everything goes correctly, because they're having to make sure they do proper alignments for the ramps and all that stuff based on what they currently have. So we're talking at least 3 weeks of this nightmare. So for those who travel, which there's a lot of them, for those who travel from here up to Seattle, expect a much longer commute time. And for those who just moved here, because there's a lot of people that move here just randomly. I have a lot of people say, oh, I just moved there like yesterday, or oh, I'm coming, next week to start a job. Definitely, if you've looked up before and you said, oh, your employer says it takes about an hour and a half, I would definitely consider leaving much, much earlier than that, right? Because it's going to be chaos. Literally, the only thing that we have at this point, other than I-5 in city streets, because there's a huge section down there that's going to be blocked off for tearing down the viaduct. So that also adds to it. So not only is the viaduct being closed creating an issue, but there's going to be a lot of streets that are not going to be open because they have to work and tear this viaduct system down. So it adds stress on top of stress. So I would say definitely make sure you give yourself much more time than you need, because it's going to put a lot of people on the streets. You do have options, obviously. You have the sounder, but it doesn't run all the time. As I told someone, it doesn't run on the weekends either. And you have to check the schedule on that. I don't know it off the top of my head, but you can go to our website to check it out. And then you also, of course, Sweets is calling me. Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Sweets. And then you also have the express bus, but that's going to be caught up in a lot of traffic as well. So anyhow, I got to see what Sweets wants. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.